In this video, we'll look at the Navbar, a wrapper for our nav that provides options, making it suitable for site-wide navigation that can be collapsed into a hamburger navigation menu programmatically or responsively, which is the way that we'll probably use it most often. And so there's a pretty simple recipe for creating a Navbar. You start off with an HTML5 nav tag and apply the Navbar class to it. Then you get the option of setting your background color for the Navbar and the foreground color. And then there are a bunch of optional things that come after that, like a branding element, whether that's text or image, and then the individual items that will be the menu items. And then we can also talk about adding optional form elements like a search box or a login form fields into the actual Navbar itself. And so let's go ahead and get started and show you this. It's easier to show than to tell. So here I have a Navbar classes.html and I've copied my template into it. And so let's begin by creating a Navbar, and I'm going to go ahead and put this inside of a cell this time. I'll go ahead and make this 12, but we'll see how we can use it outside of the container in just a little bit. So to create our first Navbar, we're going to start with the nav element and set the class equal to Navbar, like so. And you'll recall a moment ago I said that we're going to have to set the background and the foreground colors. So the background color are going to be things like BG dash, and there are a bunch of them to choose from, as you can see. I'm going to choose BG faded, and later on we'll choose some of the other colors. And then we're going to choose a foreground color, and there's really just two color themes for foregrounds. There's going to be Navbar light, which will give you a black font, or Navbar dark, which will give you a white font. I know it's kind of the opposite. So if you're going to have a dark Navbar, then you're going to want white text, right? So that's the thought process. If you have a light Navbar, then you're going to want black text. Okay. Next up, now we're going to get into the actual items for the Navbar. So here's where you can either choose an unordered list or we can create a div. But either way, we're going to apply the class Navbar-nav. All right, so that's what actually will create the individual items, which we can add either as individual, list items, like so, with anchor tags in them, right? And here we'll go like home, and then I'll copy this, paste it in twice. So this would be home, about, contact us. All right, and in each of these cases, I'm gonna have to apply a class called nav-item. So let me do that. And then for each of the hyperlinks, we'll apply a class, and this is nav-link. So what we learned previously from our navigation lesson, our nav lesson, applies here with the classes that we use. Okay. And for the one that's currently selected, we're going to apply the active class to it, like so. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what we have so far. Okay, so you see we have the beginnings of our Navbar here. All right, and so we might want to create like a an anchor to the logo or just text for our company name. So href equals star, and then class equals Navbar brand. And we'll just say Acme here. All right, there we go. So you can see it's a larger font. We could use a logo instead, just an image inside of there instead of text. That would take us back to like the home page, for example. All right, and then in addition to this, I tell you what, let's, instead of this version, let's swap this out and create a second version of this in another row. So here we go. And I want to show you how to do this, but without an unordered list. So this time we're going to basically do the exact same thing. So nav class equals navbar. Also, I'll just choose a different background color. So we'll go with inverse. So that should give us a black background, and then navbar dark, which would give us the white text. All right, so things are already shaping up to be a little bit different. And then here, instead of an anchor, I might use an H1 with the class equals navbar brand, for example. And so we don't have a hyperlink. It's just an H1 for the navbar brand. And then here what we'll do is, instead of using an unordered list, we'll just create a div tag, and inside of the div tag, then we'll have individual anchor tags. So here we'll go class equals nav dash item, nav dash link, and we'll even make this, well, we'll make this one the active one, sure. And then here we'll go like home, and we'll go about us and contact. All right, so let's see what that looks like. Okay, great. So inverted. And also we can add a form control, like I mentioned earlier. So outside of this div for the navbar nav, let's go ahead and add a form. And I'm going to set the class of the form to form inline. Remember, we looked at that, so this will all be on one line. And then I'm going to pull this to the right, even at the small size. And then here I can use, like an input control, class equals form control, type equals text, placeholder equals search. And then we'll go ahead and add a button, class equals btn success, type equals submit, and search. Oops. All right, so let's see what that looks like. Okay, interesting. Now, obviously, when we get to these smaller sizes, things are going to start wrapping on us. And this is where we'll want to talk about collapsing. And we'll get to that in just a moment. All right. Now, before we get to that, let's look at a version of a navbar that will always stay at the top of our page. So I'm going to, above the container, I'm going to add this navbar. And notice that I have this navbar fixed top, and then I can put anything I want inside of that. Here I just have the brand name, but I can add optional, the rest of the elements itself. But the key here is what happens here at the very top. Notice that, I'll have to make this kind of smaller, but I can't get the scroll bar to come up, unfortunately, here. I'm going to need to improve this example a little bit to demonstrate this. And I'm just going to add in some lorem ipsum to make this page much longer and then run it again. All right, there we go. Now I can scroll and see I get a fixed top menu, and I can add as many items as I want there on the top. Great. And I can do the same thing by adding a fixed bottom, like so. All right, so now you see I have the menu on the bottom. It's fixed, never moves. Very cool. Okay, but I think I'm going to remove that one for the time being because I'm going to need to do some more work down here. All right, now we're getting to the important stuff. So let's grab this, clear all this junk out. Okay, and we'll make this 12. And I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, here we go. Next up, let's take a look at a collapsible version. And I'm just going to paste in an example. So this will give us a button with a class applied at the top called Navbar Toggler. And then we're also going to set the data-toggle attribute equal to collapse. And then we're going to set the data-target equal to pound and then the name of the navbar that, or the ID of the navbar that we're going to collapse. And actually this is not a navbar per se, this is actually just div content. And we can put anything we want in here. So in this case all we have is just a black background with some padding, we've got an H4 and a span with muted text. So we could put menu options, whatever we want in here, but this is the nav bar and it'll have a button on it that will show and hide this div panel right here. Okay, let's run it. Scroll down the bottom. And here you see we got the little menu, the hamburger menu. Okay, and I'll tell you what we're going to do. Improve this example one more time. Let's put this below it so we can actually see what we're working with here. Great. Okay, so now we've got room to move. Okay, here we go. Collapse content, toggleable, right? Very cool. The final version of this example then will be us creating a collapsible responsive menu. So here, and I'm pulling this directly from the Bootstrap 4 help, I am creating a single nav. Inside of the nav, I've got the nav button, the class equals navbar toggler. It's going to be hidden from the medium size and upward, but when we get to the small size, it's going to be shown. All right. So remember, this symbol right here is going to be that those three lines. It'll create that hamburger. And we've got the button. It has the data toggle and the data target. This target is pointing towards this div tag panel right here with the same ID. It's going to be shown. It's going to be shown and toggleable from the small size and downward, and will be collapsed by default. But what if we're in the medium size? Well, if we're in the medium size, we won't see this. We won't be toggled and collapsed. Instead, will be displayed as a regular navbar. Okay, so let's go ahead and see this in action. Scroll all the way down here to our example. All right, so here's our responsive navbar, and here we are. We're not collapsed at the moment. Now I'm going to move this from the medium to the small size, and when I do, notice that everything we had in there collapsed, and instead we see the button, and when we expand it, we can now see our nav again. Okay? So that is a responsive version of our navbar. All right, so we looked at quite a bit here. We looked at the basics of creating a navbar. We looked at all the various options, and we looked at how to create a collapsible navbar and then how to create a responsive collapsible navbar. All right, so let's continue on. You're doing great. See you in the next lesson. Thanks.